Hello, everybody. This is Jim Condit Jr. with Nikki Nelson. We're on this radio show you're about to hear, but the craziest thing happened when we got the copy from WKRC, which is one of the 600 or so iHeart stations. They had, within a short time after the show aired on AM radio, they actually censored two segments, a 9-minute segment, a 10-minute segment, out of the recording. The first one was Nikki was talking about the women's flotilla or boat to Palestine that was arrested by the Israelis. And the second one was near the end, the last 10 minutes of the show, where we talked about Christian Zionism. So what we did, we had figured that we might be victimized by dirty tricks, as we have been since 2002 off and on. We had AM radio playing, and we recorded it with a microphone. So when you get to the points that are censored, it'll be a lot rougher sound. Like you'll hear noise in the background because we're not taping it really professionally. It's right off of an AM radio with a microphone, but you can hear it, and then it goes back to normal. Then when it's censored again, it goes. So it really is kind of hilarious, and it strikes me how afraid the powers that be are of this information, that we're on a few hours a year and a few minutes a year for the commercials. They got 365 days on one station. They got 365 days a year, 7 days a week for every station in the country, every major talk station, and they're so afraid of this information that they don't even want it to be re-uploaded to YouTube or something. And they also have tried to keep us off the air, which we'll be talking about on next week's show too. So I wish the general population would realize how afraid the powers that be are of getting real information out over the FCC licensed stations. So Nikki, did you have some comments to add here?
Well, I just think it's ridiculous that they are so afraid of real information getting out that they would take the time to have somebody, I guess, in the back room of iHeart editing our audio. And the one part that really concerns me is when I had stated that, looking back on the presidential elections, it appears that Israel attacks Palestine between 1 and 4 weeks after the presidential election. So that was my prediction. I'm hoping that pattern doesn't continue, but that's what I'm really concerned about, and I was concerned that they cut that out, Jim.
That's why they cut it out. And so if you listen to the show as they gave it to us, if Nikki hadn't caught that they edited it, you would have heard her come in after the half-hour break, and we were talking about something that there was no context for. So this is what I find is that there's no and it's been throughout the last century. There's other people who have said this. There's no item too small for them to try to harass you with or censor you with. They don't want 1 second or 1 minute of information out exposing their criminal agenda. Not 1 minute. They don't want that. They don't want certainly an hour program. But our side tends to be lackadaisical and not realize how much good we could do if we all pulled together on some of these strategies. Now, I made, during the recording, you're going to hear that I a few times said letfreedomring.com when I should have said letfreedomring@247.com. Of course, that's up on the billboard throughout the show. And at one point I said 19 that the scriptures had 3 times that God had given the land to Israel, and the promise was over. And that last one was 1,900 years before Christ, and I said 19 years before Christ, so that was a mistake. And then they say on the recording, instead of saying this is a paid political broadcasting, not necessarily expressing the opinions of iHeartRadio, they put on, we are required to air this program. So they want everybody to know they had nothing to do with the content of our program. And then finally, you put the links up in a very professional way. Nikki put all the links up so anybody that heard the radio program doesn't have to keep writing down links, and they can find them. And why don't you tell everybody where that is?
Sure. That's located at targetfreedomusa.com. So we have links showing, substantiating all of the information that we were discussing, so people, can understand. I know it sounds like we're crazy, but I mean, this information is in the public domain. I mean, it only
sounds like we're crazy to people that have been depending on CNN and Fox News to get all their information. But
and target audience on these shows. And I think
right.
if people in America understood that under the Reasonable Access Law, we could have people running for Congress in each and every state, which means we could break the censorship every 2 years. So, these are strategies that Jim Condit Jr. has been working on for 30 years. He's got the Precinct Project to take back our country at the local level. You can find information at networkamerica.org on that, and also getting information on the mainstream airwaves, and that's through the Reasonable Access Law, and that's what we were trying or attempting to do this last Sunday. And you did a great job editing this video. I hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, it's funny, and they did the same thing to Jill Stein, didn't they? So PBS did that, and you can Google Jill Stein, a Green Party candidate, Jill Stein, PBS censorship, and you'll see some short, hilarious videos on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for them to cut out the part where she says people need to know that they not only have a right to vote, they have a right to know who they can vote for. I mean, for them to cut that out, I mean, how ridiculous.
But of course,
these people are afraid of information, and we have to do everything in our power to get this information out. Now, these radio ads that Dr. Q and Jim are doing, these cost money. This comes from donations from people. So if you want to help pay for these radio ads, we're going to have Ken O'Keefe on next Sunday. I mean, like Jim said, they probably are wearing Depends at this point, thinking that Ken O'Keefe's going to be on. But these radio shows cost money. These ad spots cost money. Please, if you can, donate. You can donate at electdrq.com. There's a donate button there, and the money will go towards these radio ads, getting this information out. We've got another 4 weeks to do this, and then we'll start it over again in 2 years.
Okay, good. All right, thanks, Nikki. And here comes the show, and I think everybody that's interested in this type of thing will find it kind of hilarious what they tried to censor from the copy they gave us. So, okay, very good.
Thank you, and thanks so much for your hard work, Jim. I know they pushed us back 2 days, but it is what it is.
Well, and you too.
Video and donate to the radio ad campaign.
Yeah, and you too, Nikki, and everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
It's more good news from the Exergen Temporal Scanner Weather Center. Sunshine today, a high near 66. Clear tonight, low around 43. Sunshine on Columbus Day, a high near 67. And sunshine on Tuesday as well, with a high near 73. That's your forecast on 55 KRC. Right now, 68 degrees at 55 KRC, the talk station. The following is a paid political program, and the station is required to air it.
And now, let FreedomRing2016.com, the radio show.
Paid for by Dr. Q Marskiani for Congress 2016. Hi, I am Dr. Q. Please stay tuned. We are beginning in few seconds.
Okay, welcome to Let Freedom Ring 247.com, the radio show. Our intro somehow is the usual intro was not there. This is paid for by Dr. Q, Dr. Q Marskiani. I'm Jim Condit Jr. I'm going to be sitting here co-hosting the show with Dr. Q. And so, Dr. Q, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jim?
Okay. Do you have any opening words for the audience here? We're going to have a blockbuster hour of suppressed information here. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to this weekend, this special weekend, which is called the Columbus Day weekend.
Yeah.
Remember why we all come to this country. What is our purpose in this country, and what can be done to take back our country.
Right. Now, you notice, if you were listening a few seconds ago, the intro said, this is a paid political announcement and the station is required to air it. And I'll explain what that means. I've never heard that before, but I'm glad that they put that on there. Because under the Reasonable Access Law, which is part of the 1934 Communications Act, when someone's running for office as a federal candidate, the stations are required to provide them with airtime if they can pay for it, like with businesses. So
Yes.
so you get a situation where you're going to have, like we did on 9/11 three weeks ago. We did the part of 9/11 that's never told, what actually happened, who did it, and all that. And so we're putting in information that you will absolutely, a lot of which you will absolutely not hear on any other time on any major radio station or any other major television station.
Yes.
Okay? And we'll get into why that is. So, but we've had a 3-week break. Those of you who follow the show, I know some of you do, because people walk up to me and say, hey, we didn't hear you on last week. We had a 3-week break because we've been having a little back and forth with the FCC in Washington, D.C., that's the Federal Communications Commission, and a little back and forth with iHeart, which owns this station and about 600 other radio stations. A lot of them are big talk stations. And I'm Jim Condit Jr., and I disqualified myself from the ballot in November according to some rules I didn't know. So you always learn something. You can't run in 2 different districts. I was running in the special election in John Boehner's district and then want to run in District 2. But apparently you can't do that. We're probably going to go to court to get a federal clarification on that because it's questionable in our mind whether the state can restrict people running for Congress. This is a state law that I was disqualified for. But Dr. Q is running as a write-in in the 1st district. And that was part of the debate. Is a write-in a real candidate, which is more than absurd, because a write-in candidate won the Alaska Senate race, U.S. Senate race in 2012 or 2010, I think, and in 2006, a guy named I think his name was Joe Wilson or Charlie Wilson. He won a Democratic primary in Ohio up near Youngstown or Akron by a write-in, and he beat people on the ballot. So the idea, but anyway, it's beyond absurd. But we had to do a back and forth, and they wanted Q to prove he was a real candidate. And if you're certified by your board of election that people can vote for you, you're a real candidate. But the FCC has been making regulations. But this is now another thing. I believe that the powers, even though the people at the station here in Cincinnati are as nice as they can be, the people at the head of iHeart in San Antonio and the FCC do not want this message on today. So if you want to hear, if you're a political junkie or you like political news, you want to tell your friends to all tune in right now because you're going to hear a show like you haven't heard before if you haven't heard us before. So I believe that. So for instance, I myself at one point in my career, somebody else last time U.S. for Senate in the Kentucky. And now Dr. Q has paid money to the station and had their money returned to us as legal candidates. So I want to know, is there ever been a case, and we may find this out in deposition from the FCC, where someone left the center or someone who's not critical of Israel or the Jewish lobby, which is what sets us apart in some ways, have they ever had their money returned to them? And I'll bet in the whole history of the United States and the FCC, the answer is no. It's only reserved for us who are going to put on things that are critical of Israel or critical of the organized Jewish lobby. So anyway, that's what's going on here a little bit. Dr. Q, again, Dr. Q Mars Kiani, I had trouble with Dr. Q's name but you think of Q Mars. It's Dr. Q Mars or just Dr. Q. And I'll say before I turn the mic back over, Dr. Q was born in Iran in 1971.
Yes, that's correct.
45 years old now. And he was arrested 5 times in Iran before the turn of the century for just trying to get normal freedoms like freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. Last time he was poisoned, and he was paralyzed for a year, but somehow, miraculously almost, he made it back. He came to the United States 2000 and became a citizen around 2005, right? Yes. And I can tell you, if you drew a circle around Cincinnati, Ohio, 90 miles, it would be 10 million people. It was Columbus, Indianapolis, Louisville, Lexington. You draw a circle around Cincinnati, Ohio, where we are. But I don't know if there's hardly anybody else's campaign that I would manage or be associated with because Dr. Q's right on all the issues. He's pro-life. He's against all these needless wars. He understands 9/11. In fact, we met 2 years ago. That's where I met him, kind of, is in the 9/11, they call it the 9/11 truth movement like that's an insult. Somehow they made truth into an insult. But at any rate, so that's what's going on here today. And we're going to have someone join us shortly on a news event this week. But did you want to mention anything before we get into the issues here? Yeah,
I just wanted to tell you when Jim and I, discussed these issues, I immediately remember what happened in the past to me and to my country. I mean, not this is my country, but I'm talking about my former country. And it was very clear that these criminals, they don't come out and tell you that they want to rob your liberty and freedom. Obviously, they're going to have a huge smile on their faces. They're going to sugarcoat everything. But they say something and they do some other things. Just like Hillary, she's doing, she's saying something on the stage, but doing something else behind the closed doors. And as you can see, she even insulted all kind of minorities, from blacks or Middle Easterns or, even people of Ohio, So what we are doing, we are exposing these people here and now. So hopefully we can take our country back. And it's not just 9/11, it's a lot, but 9/11 was kind of the nexus point in the timeline, the history, I should say. It changed lots of things, but there are a lot of things that you don't know. And I guess I'm very grateful to come across Jim, because Jim exactly believes in what I do. So thank you so much, Jim.
Sure. Now, by the way, we should mention that we just got up on, first of all, Dr. Q's website is electdrq.com, and he also has a Facebook page called Elect Dr. Q, where you're putting up little videos every day. I got to learn how to do that, but you know how to do it. So he turns on his phone and somehow puts a video up. Now, the Trump situation, we put up today on election night gatekeepers. And again, Dr. Q's website is electdrq.com, and this will be linked there if it isn't already. But electionnightgatekeepers.com, we've got the final essay up on the front page of electionnightgatekeepers.com for the next 30 days and the dangers of computer fraud against Trump. We also have up on there 2 videos. One is 2 minutes long, the other one is 34 minutes long. Now, if you're not aware of how our election system has been taken out of our hands, you need to read that, because this is the same cabal, and Trump is obviously not favored compared to Hillary. They're beating down on Trump 24 hours a day. Now, he got exposed for saying something bad about women, and no one should ever say, yesterday. And we all knew that, though. I mean, everybody knew that Trump was a playboy in his youth. I mean, as I say, if he was running against Buchanan or Ron Paul, I could write a booklet against Trump. But when we have the field of candidates this year, like Phyllis Schlafly said, he seems to be the only one that wants to fight for America, and we hope he does fight. So he apologized, but I'm sure they're going to come out with a ton more stuff from his youth.
No, it just grinds my gears that they're talking about that Trump said something, and it's a huge difference between saying something out of, let's say, frustration or anger, or just maybe a boy is a boy. Like in the locker room, we say lots of things about women, and vice versa. When women drink in their Chardonnay, they might say some other things about guys, and some of them are valid and correct. But there is a huge difference between Donald Trump saying things and Hillary and her husband doing things. And somebody told me, but that wasn't Hillary herself. It was a husband, Bill. But what kind of woman support and protect, her unfaithful husband to that point that she calls these other women who are victims bimbos, bunch of bimbos, and some other things that she said that, they're comparing to what Trump said is nothing, really, nothing. It's vulgar, and Trump, compared to Hillary, he's a saint, he's a saint.
If you're going to compare, Hillary in effect persecutes the victims of her husband.
Yes.
So, but the press is. Somebody said it was Dinesh D'Souza, the guy that did the Hillary's America, that recent movie that's making a big, and he made one against Obama, and they actually put him in jail for a while.
Oh, wow.
Because they found some financial mistake he made on campaign. They put him in jail. But he said he's never seen the press huffing and puffing so hard to carry anybody over the finish line. The press is openly campaigning for Hillary. Yeah. I watched Meet the Press today. That agent of the organized worldwide Jewish shadow government, Chuck Todd, was on there campaigning for Hillary. They act like they're newsmen. They're campaigning because Hillary is the front woman for all the nexus of evil that's happening. Now, some people are saying to me, you're being fooled. Trump is just playing an act. I don't think he's insincere what he says, so we're hoping if he gets in, he does at least, if he does 1/3 of the things he said, it's going to put a wrench in the plans to destroy the United States of America. Hillary's a total phony. Hillary also, I contend, is at about 20% support. These polls are fake. These polls being pushed out by these media, they're just making them up. Hey, if the whole future of the world is going to be made by these polls, then prove they're scientific. All these online polls, Q, where 1 million people go, and some of them, or 500,000 or 120,000 go to vote right for their computer. And it's hard to vote twice. You got to vote from 2 different IPs. I tried it. You can't vote from the same computer twice. Very few people are going to do that. Most people don't know how to get a different IP or run next door or whatever. So these are much more valid polls than 500 people interviewed by the greatest liars in the history of mankind, the 5 TV networks. These are the people say, I don't believe the 5 TV networks. They believe the polls. It's not true. It's not that great of a compliment to America, but Americans love celebrities. They love unpredictable, funny celebrities. So on that alone, Trump is going to. Trump would win, and I guarantee you, Hillary's at about 20%. Trump's at 60 to 70. There's 100 Trump signs for every one I see for Hillary.
No, I wanted to say that.
Go ahead.
Because I drive around a lot. You know that.
Yeah.
And I want to take pictures of streets and roads. And just, have our audience take a look at it. Probably I can send it on our website. And just take a look at it. You be the judge. You don't need these polls. The polls are on the streets. The poll are.
But what the networks want to tell us is, don't trust your own eyes. Don't trust that Trump gets 25,000 to his rallies and Hillary can't get 400.
Exactly.
She can't get 400. Don't trust that. Don't trust that people run to their computers after a debate on Time Magazine, Fortune Magazine, Hannity, and Trump wins 78 or 20. Don't trust us. Trust us. The Jewish operatives running all 5 networks who say we polled 500 people, and then they tell us the results, or they could pay people to do the calls and make up the results.
Oh, absolutely.
And that reminds me, the beginning of understanding on what is wrong with America is that these atheistic Talmudic Jews. I don't want to brush all Jews because I'm working with Jewish people right now around the country.
Some of them are against Zionism.
Absolutely, and they're against the tyranny. But as far as who's at the top, and they persecute their own Jewish dissenters worse than they persecute us. All 5 TV networks are run by atheistic, Talmudic, Zionist Jews, and they are out to do a new world order with a new world tyranny, which is communism. Go ahead.
Just a great point, because one of the emails that got released and revealed today, saying that Hillary Clinton wants a new world order, and she's talking about a hemispheric government, a hemispheric government, meaning the end of United States. She's working very hard to dismantle this country. That's what she wants.
100%.
Is that what you want, my audience? Is that what you really want?
And so these Republicans, like the traitor John McCain, just because he was a war hero, he's been a traitor to this country for years. He comes on and he said, I can't support Trump. Well, of course, I would rather have myself, Pat Buchanan, or Ron Paul, or Jim Traficant if he was still alive. But we got Trump or Hillary. So when these idiots, they're not idiots, they're traitors of the country, like Paul Ryan, because they bow and scrape before the Jewish lobby, the organized Jewish lobby, because that's where they know they get their bread buttered. And so these guys who say, I'm going to now not support Trump, they're really saying, I want Hillary. Now, Hillary, when I say she's going to try to bring, like Obama is, as fast as he can, bring communism to the United States. Communism is an ideology that says nobody is human except the communists running the government.
Yes.
You have no rights. That's why they killed 20 million people in the Ukraine, another 20 million in Russia. In other words, you have no rights. We deserve all the property. So we're going to have you all live like animals on a commune, a big worldwide commune. Communism. You're going to own nothing. We will run anything. Now, communism is actually the Talmud. The Talmud is the Jewish religious book that they use in all the synagogues around the country, maybe -5, okay? Yes. So the Quran has some bad stuff in it. Nothing like the Talmud that says that you, if you're not Jewish, are not fully human. Yes. That says that it's okay to kill non-Jews.
Yes, that's the difference between Quran and Talmud.
Yeah, and they actually do it to their own people as well. If if a Jewish person gets away, they do it too. But I want the rabbis, don't call me, man, anti-Semite. They're anti-Christian and anti-humanity. I want the rabbis to come out. I'll debate them in public. Of course, they won't do that. Come out and explain why this is in their so-called holy book. The key parts of the Talmud are actually a manual for organized crime. Okay?
Oh, absolutely.
You can find a lot about the Talmud on LetFreedomRing247.com. So if we started a little slow, now the audience is saying that's why they put at the beginning of the hour that the station is forced to air this content. Now, we have on the phone, I hope, Nikki Nelson, one of the great freedom fighters in the country, because we talked about who owns the 5 TV networks. And Americans don't know how much news is being censored for them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what we're going to do is talk about something that happened this week that I'll bet you haven't heard about, and then we're going to talk. This is an example of censorship, okay? So, okay, let me see if I can make this work. Oh, I hope I don't disconnect her here. Hold on.
Yeah,
Hello, Nikki, are you there?
Hi, Jim. Hi, Dr. Q. How are you doing?
Good. Listen, speak as close to the phone as you can, or get in the best position you can out there near the West Coast. So I just said, you've been listening for a little while. So we're saying the beginning of understanding in the United States is that all major TV networks and local TV stations and all major radio stations are controlled by not the Arabs, not the Germans, not the Americans. It's controlled by the organized Jewish lobby. Now they have dual citizenship. The person who wrote the checks for Clear Channel, Rush Limbaugh's check, Sean Hannity's check, Glenn Beck's check, was a lady named Arit Gadish, and we have her on
Jewish.
On letfreedomring.com, letfreedomring247.com, I mean to say.
Yes.
So if you realize that this one group censors all the news, you'll realize why you never had heard of this next story. So, Nikki, go ahead and tell everybody what happened this week. That, as far as I know, I haven't seen anything on any major FCC licensed station, TV or radio station.
Yes, I know, and it's ridiculous that we have 2 to 3% of the population controlling, virtually 100% of all of our media.
And of course, it's only just a few people of that too. It isn't all Jews, of course. We always want to make that clear. It's this organized Jewish lobby that is really only a few thousand people at the top. But anyway, by the way, this is LetFreedomRing.com, the radio show. It's sponsored by Dr. Q Marskiani, Dr. Q for short.
He's a candidate as a write-in in the 1st District of Ohio for Congress, and Nikki Nelson is our guest on the phone from the West Coast. She's one of the great, in the Ron Paul days, she started, I think, and one of the great freedom fighters in the United States. So go ahead then, Nikki. What happened this week?
Yes, thanks, Jim. And all of the links for the information we're talking about today can be found on targetfreedomusa.com.
Okay.
And so anything we mention in this show, you can find the links at targetfreedomusa.com.
Okay.
So we have an article up about that. But basically on Wednesday, October 5th, there was no mention in the mainstream media that I know of. We had a freedom flotilla with 13 women called the Women's Vote to Gaza, traveling to Palestine, traveling to get in to break the blockade of Gaza that the Israelis won't admit. I mean, they won't admit that there's a blockade. And sure enough, on that boat we had Ann Wright, who is a retired Army colonel for 29 years, also a U.S. diplomat that worked with John Kerry. We had 3 women that were parliamentarians in their respective countries. We had a Nobel Peace Prize winner an Olympic volleyball player. Anyways, it was a boat full of peace activists on their way, and sure enough, illegally in international waters, the Israeli commandos boarded the boat and kidnapped those women. So I think that they were let go yesterday or the day before, but they were detained, they weren't allowed to sleep, the same old stuff, which isn't nearly as bad as what happened on the Mavi Marmara ship previously, the flotilla, the flotilla coming from Turkey that had one of our activists, Ken O'Keefe, on, and several other activists. 9 of them were killed by the Israelis on that flotilla that was trying to deliver aid to Gaza. So I think that's proof positive. And this is the thing that's upsetting to me, is I look back at when does Israel come up with their lame excuses to go and bomb Gaza, the entire, and Palestine, the West Bank? When do they do that? Well, they usually do it within a week or within 4 weeks, between 1 and 4 weeks after our presidential elections. So I'm just hoping...
Now, actually, Nikki, didn't they bomb Gaza and the Palestine right after the 2012, in December 2012, but didn't they also do it in November, December of 2014, 2 years ago?
No, they were doing it. It was, I think, June, July, August. They bombed for 51 days. They killed almost 3,000 Palestinians. Tens of thousands of them were injured, and over 600 children were killed. Yeah. And that was based on the pretext, again, this is what we need to look for, of 3 Jews or Israelis being kidnapped, which Hamas had nothing to do with. And if people aren't familiar, Hamas is the duly elected leadership in Gaza. They were duly elected through an election. Jimmy Carter wrote a book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. And so the ongoing situation in Palestine is the Israelis are building illegal settlements. They keep bombing. In fact, the day of the flotilla, they were bombing Gaza. None of this made the news. So I don't know if they were bombing in retaliation to the flotilla coming in. But yeah, they were bombing Gaza with 4 big bombs, a smaller bomb, and then of course they've got their drones and spy planes up there. But what we need to look for, folks, is Israel coming up with some crazy excuse, some lie, to go and start bombing Gaza again right after the election, because that seems to be the pattern. And they're just, Americans that are familiar with what's going on, that this is an illegal occupation, that Palestine has no navy, they have no air force, they have no military there. I mean, they're defenseless. They throw some rocks. And, I mean, you'll see the kids throwing rocks at the tanks. Just in the West Bank alone, we have 700 checkpoints in Palestine.
No,
I mean, that's crazy. They can't even get to work without going through a checkpoint, and it's very dangerous. They kill, on average, 1 Palestinian a day every 3 days. No. That's the average. So this is an ongoing problem. Americans need to wake up and realize that there is no reason to support this apartheid state of terror. And then when you realize as an American that Israel was behind 9/11, anybody could Google Christopher Bolin or go to Bolin.com. There's so much evidence. It's irrefutable. Israel was behind 9/11. They had the motive. They had the means. They were in charge of the buildings. They were in charge of the airports. How can any American support this terrorist nation? That's what blows my mind. I don't understand the brainwashing. And it is because the mainstream media is controlled by these same criminals.
Nikki, we got plenty of time here. We're about coming to the half-hour break, then we'll have almost another half hour. Just to put this in context, because before we go to break here, I think Q's going to come when we come back, then we'll turn back the floor back over to Nikki. Israel, with the backing of the United Nations, Russia, and the United States, took over Palestine in 1948, okay? Now, Netanyahu, one of the greatest mass murderers of all time, as far as what he can get his hands on, is doing a slow genocide against the Palestinians and killing them as fast as they can. All the wars in the Middle East have been about expanding Israel's territory, not primarily about oil, which Saddam was willing to sell us, So in that context is why they keep finding excuses to kill more and more Palestinians to eventually try to take over the whole land. So we got to go to break. We're going to come back. Dr. Q's going to come, but then, Nikki, you stay spring-loaded there because we're going to come back to you then, okay?
Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay, go ahead then, Miss Producer. We can, I guess, do the break now.
55 KRC.
This is Fox News on 55 KRC, the talk station.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Pat O'Neill. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump face off in their second presidential debate tonight. Trump facing a firestorm over a decade-old video showing him making vulgar comments about women. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani says now that's just a distraction.
He said some very bad things 10 or 12 years ago. He's apologized for it. And it seems to me we should move on.
WikiLeaks material, meanwhile, reportedly shows Clinton in Wall Street speeches saying it was an oversimplification to blame banks for the financial crisis. But campaign chairman John Podesta says
what she wants to do is crack down on the system, make sure that there's no institution that's too big to fail and there's no person that's too big to jail. So I think she's put forward very comprehensive ideas about that.
Podesta and Giuliani on Fox News Sunday. The debate starts at 9 p.m. This is a Fox News Alert.
The forecast from the Exergen Temporal Scanner Weather Center. Sunshine today, a high near 66. Clear tonight, low around 43. More sunshine on Columbus Day, a high near 67. And then Tuesday, sunny and a high all the way up to 73. That's your forecast on 55 KRC.
Pet Talk with Dr. Gary Clemens. Sundays at 5 on 55 KRC, the talk station.
We'll fix it.
Okay, well, apparently the wrong bumpers were added in for us, so we'll just identify that this is Let Freedom Ring 247.com, the radio show. Let Freedom Ring 247.com, the radio show. It's sponsored by Dr. Q Marskiani, who's running for the 1st District of Ohio for Congress. He's nicknamed Dr. Q or Q. And the radio station must run political advertising during the last 60 days before an election, according to the reasonable access law. They have to accept reasonable time if the candidate can pay for it, and so they have to carry it. And they wouldn't be you won't hear this type of show the rest of the year because they have to carry the show, and you can guess, listening to us for 5 minutes, why you don't hear it. Now, Nikki Nelson, activist extraordinaire from the West Coast, is on here explaining about this women's boat that was going into Palestine and got illegally seized and so forth. And this week, and you didn't hear about it because the networks, the TV and radio big stations controlled by the organized Jewish lobby or world shadow government, didn't let you hear about it. And we're going to get into other examples of censorship. But Dr. Q wanted to say something, and then we're going to go back to Nikki. So, Dr. Q, go ahead.
No, first of all, thank you so very much, Nikki, on being on the show. Then the other thing I wanted to point out before we start talking about Israel and Palestine, we talk about communism and how communism is controlled by Zionism and, the Talmudic Jews. And people don't know what the real name of Karl Marx is. It's Chaim Herschel Mordechai. He's a rabbi. He's actually a freaking rabbi. And if somebody, and he was born in a Cohen family, in a priestly family. And he was a big, fan of Hegelian dialectic. Uh-huh. Basically, he studied that. And he put that in, his policies, his philosophy, what is the Hegelian dialectic? And it is related to what Nikki is saying. Is basically saying problem, reaction, solution. You come up with a, fake problem, then seek people's reaction, which is usually overreacting rather than reacting out of fear. And then finally, you offer them the solution, the well-tailored solution. And that's what they're doing. Even I hate to say this, but even those so-called oppositions who are fighting for Palestinians. They are not fighting for Palestinians. But the grassroots movement does exist, and they're fighting for the Palestinians.
Like false opposition. False opposition.
Yeah, false opposition. Israel created false oppositions. That's how they were able to take away the whole land of Palestine. And if you Google it today, you can't even see it under Jewish Google map. You can't see the word, Palestine anymore. And that's very sad.
Yeah, they act like Palestine didn't exist. So, Nikki, before we get to you, Ken O'Keefe, who was on the first flotilla of a year ago or something, and was on, 9 people were killed on that one. He was going to be on today, but he's going to be on next week. We'll have Ken O'Keefe on next week, who's a real brave, probably the closest thing we have left to Jim Trafficant. Now the Trafficant's passed away. And so, Nikki, what were they bringing in on this flotilla, these 12 women, this former military officer, Ann Wright, this volleyball player for the Olympics, and this parliament member from New Zealand? What were they bringing in on this boat to visit the Palestinians? Were they bringing guns? What were they bringing?
No, I think they just had some aid, and they were really just there to show support and try to break the blockade. So basically, I think that's what they were doing. They may have had some presence and whatnot. I know that you could see some pictures from the AP showing the Palestinians, with balloons and signs. They were in their little pangas with their flag, trying to meet them. They were so excited that they were coming, and they were so excited even though they were dropping bombs on them right at the time that the flotilla was coming in, but it was intercepted. It's just depressing. It's so sad. But, I know Palestinians that live there. I know people in Gaza, and they are just happy that anybody remembers them, that anybody knows what's happening. They just appreciate any support. And unlike, the news portrays these Muslims as crazy people, they are the most hospitable people. They are very, and I've said this to Jim before. I was raised Catholic myself. They're very similar in the way they are very conservative and very humble, and the way that they cherish marriage. They cherish Mother Mary. They cherish Jesus as a prophet. I don't think many people understand that. And of course, there's horrific, like in Saudi Arabia. I mean, they're one of the biggest human rights violators of all times, and they're our allies. That's what's so ridiculous, because they're Zionist controlled. So, when people think about it, we've got billions of Muslims on the planet. They come from different regions, but in Palestine, the women they're highly educated. They're precious, and they're very innocent. They're very naive, and I know that sounds crazy because they live in a war zone, but they're very appreciative of anything that the Americans and people around the world are trying to do. For instance, back in 2014, Operation quote-unquote Protective Edge, where they bombed them relentlessly for 51 days and blew up 7 hospitals, I think it was, 5 UN schools, even though the UN had given the coordinates of the hospital 17 times, they still bombed the hospital, and one of the UN representatives came on and he was trying to talk and he started crying on camera. Media people that were actually covering it would just break out and just start crying because it was just unbelievable, but you don't see that on our mainstream media. One of the other things that we're going to have a problem with this time around, more so than we did last time, is now we have Facebook representatives, YouTube, Twitter, all of the main social media networks have signed a contract that were started by Ergun Gilad, who is a security administrator or some national security officer or whatever for Israel. And he started it months ago under the name the European Coalition Against Incitement or something. But now we've got Facebook leaders meeting. Now Israel is actually in control of the policy of Facebook. It's not a conspiracy theory. You can look it up. I've got a link in the article at targetfreedomusa.com that shows they are collaborating with Israel, and basically what they're saying is they don't want any information out there about Israel, and they're tired of having to flag all of our posts to be removed. So they're tired of having to do that, which is so funny because they pay their college students a couple $1,000s a month to go online and debate with us and flag, report all our posts, try to get websites taken down in collaboration with the ADL and whatnot, and I guess they're tired of doing it. They can't keep up. So now they're just in control, and they actually, we have several Israel, groups and Palestine groups trying to get the truth out. And we have, in one of our groups, we probably have 50 posts that are automatically reported by Facebook per day, just with keywords or even just pictures. I don't even know how they're doing it, but they're tired of having to hand pick out the truth on social media. So we're in a lot of trouble the next time around.
And basically, they're flagging posts and trying to remove them that are sticking up for the Palestinians or exposing the crimes of Netanyahu and the Israelis. Now, let me say this: several things here. One is that you did have, just to put some balance here, because some people, maybe the word spreads and some Jewish people listen and say, "Gee, all they want to do is bash Jews." No, but we do have to stop.
No, this article came out by Glenn Greenwald. He's
Glenn,
The Intercept. He's the one who put that article on Facebook as collaborating with the Israeli government to determine what should be censored. So we've got great Jews in the movement that are working daily. Norman Finkelstein, we've got Adam Kokesh. We've got all kinds of Jewish people that are on the right side fighting freedom of speech, but they're not in control of the mainstream media in Hollywood and whatnot.
Exactly. And Jill Stein, who is the candidate for the Green Party for president, and I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but on CNN, she said that she was for cutting off all military aid to Israel until they quit persecuting and violating the human rights and killing the Palestinians. Well, this was on the CNN town hall, and I think the Cuomo brother was hosting it. And so one of the questioners said, "Why are you singling out Israel? You were Jewish. You were raised Jewish. Jill Stein is Jewish and was raised Jewish." And she said, "I'm not singling out Israel. I'm for cutting off military aid to all the countries that are violating human rights." So that was the exact right answer. So it's the Netanyahu Likud, they're called, the Netanyahu faction of Jews that are dominating Israel. There's about 1/3 of the population who demonstrate against them in one way or another sometime. So the Jill Stein faction of Jewish people needs to defeat the Netanyahu faction if we're going to have a more just future. Now, for everyone. Now, we had this issue. We got a former military officer, Ann Wright, who was on this boat, who was arrested. No news coverage. But let's talk about two other highly censored items. There was a gal named Rachel Corrie, who was 21 years old, and instead of spending her college days partying and drinking or whatever, she went over and she was trying to stop the bulldozing of Palestinian homes. So she, and a lot of people have done this, hundreds of people have done this, trying to stop the injustice against the Palestinians. She was standing in front of a Palestinian doctor's home, and the Israeli soldier in the tank, we still don't know who it was, in the tractor, bulldozed Rachel Corrie and killed her. And that did not get any news in the United States. Had traffic
it got some local news from where she was, but that was about it. But she had been an activist since she was in 4th grade. In fact, we've got a video of her in 4th grade when she was speaking, talking about feeding the world and, thinking of other people in other countries as we would think of ourselves.
Yeah.
Just because people are from other countries or they're not the same color of us, why would we not care that they're getting killed or their children are being killed? It's just, it's obscene, really.
Right. Now, so do you remember what year that was with Rachel Corrie? I can't remember if it was 10 years ago.
I don't remember what year it was, but I will go ahead and look for that article that we already have an article on Target Freedom on that, but I will go ahead and put that link in the Target Freedom USA document with all of the other stuff.
I'm tempted to say it was around 2005, but I could be wrong, but it's at least certainly 5 to 10 years ago. So this, now, for instance, because they want to agitate racial tensions, we have some of these people like Michael Brown, who unfortunately was acting like a thug in Ferguson, and then you have Freddie Gray, who was a drug dealer to little kids and who unfortunately got killed there. We know their names. We know their names because they are served as a purpose to stir up racial tension. But Rachel Corrie, 99% of the people, she was a blonde-haired girl from, I think, Oregon or Washington State. Her parents are still alive. 99% of the people listening to this program or in America have never heard of Rachel Corrie because the story is so bad, makes Israel look so bad that the network censored the story. So that's another example of censorship. Now, a third example is the USS Liberty. USS Liberty was a United States ship attacked in 1967. 174 U.S. seamen were injured and 34 were killed, and 99% of the people listening to this show have never heard of that because then the station's also controlled by the worldwide Jewish shadow government. That's the only thing I can call it. Censored the news of one of our ships being attacked and sunk, and it was the highest grade technology ship then. 34 American sailors killed. The book on that is What I Saw That Day by Phil Turney, who survived the attack. And they meant to sink the ship and kill every one of them, and then they were going to say Egypt did it. Yeah. But he
wanted to bring us into the war. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. That's the problem. People don't understand history, are doomed to repeat it, and it's like we can't even have an intelligent conversation with anybody because we have to go back and educate them on what has happened in the past, Jim.
Or they have false knowledge. They have false knowledge of what happened. So at any rate, that's two examples. Rachel Corrie, USS Liberty is so egregious. It was an act of war. The sailors were there, said they had the United States flag flying. Israel attacked it over and over again, trying to sink it heroically. Some of the guys with paper clips and things got the message out. And then Johnson threatened all the sailors. Lyndon Johnson, president, one of the worst people of all time, made them sign things that they wouldn't talk. So a lot of them, or they would be court-martialed and put in jail. So a lot of them didn't talk for 40 years. But Colonel Jim Ennis, Phil Turney, who was just a sailor, they came out and told what happened. Now, most people should be thinking either these people, Nikki, Q, and Jim, are making stuff up, or I really have had my news censored from me, and that should make them furious at those running the 5 TV networks and all the big media who need to be jailed. We need to have trials and jailing for treason for the people that run the 5 TV networks and a lot of the other media outlets in the United States who have been censoring this stuff from our view.
And then if we go back and look, Jim, we know that John McCain's father was part of that years ago, covering up the attack on the USS Liberty by Israel.
Right.
I mean, it's in the public domain, for God's sake. All people have to do is do some research. And now we've got Syria, and that's where we're going with this. This is all part of a plan for greater Israel. This is the Zionist plan for the Middle East, and there's a link on Target Freedom USA for that as well. And that's why 9/11, why we're going into Iraq, why we're destabilizing, while we're balkanizing Syria, breaking it up into other pieces. This is all part of that same plan.
Yeah. Yes.
And it won't stop. None of this will stop unless we can stop the Israeli power over our country.
Right. It's when the United States is
where away with it is because we're behind them. We just gave them $38 billion.
Right.
I mean, why would we give $38 billion to Israel when our infrastructure is falling apart? Our people are starving, and the reason our people are hungry is because of, what is it, the founders of Israel's Federal Reserve Bank, where we are actually having these foreigners print our money, and we pay them interest. So every dollar that's printed, we owe money on it. Instead of, by the Constitution, we're supposed to print our own money, and it's supposed to be backed by gold. I mean, we can go into all that as well, but this is all stemming from the same criminals that killed Kennedy. Kennedy was fighting to get the Zionists to file as foreign agents under our FARA laws. And they wouldn't be able to be getting out this propaganda. They wouldn't be able to have AIPAC. They wouldn't be able to have all of this control over our bot-paid and blackmailed, congressmen and senators, had Kennedy and his brother both fighting to get them to file as foreign agents. And then the last letter, 30 days before they killed Kennedy, stated that if they were to file as foreign agents, it would eventually destroy the Zionist movement, Jim.
That's what one of the Jewish leaders said.
We have the original documents from the Israeli archives. That's on Target Freedom, too. You can go read through all of the documents leading up to Kennedy's murder, and all you see is Zionist this, Zionist that. That's all our congressmen and senators are doing now, is going through the illegal and unlawful legislation, the Patriot Acts, the NDAA, all of this continued war on terror, which Christopher Bolin said that was the whole plan with 9/11. It was a new Pearl Harbor, Jim.
Yeah, for endless wars and for also the encroaching communist police state. Q has a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah. Speaking of communist police state, you're absolutely right. Like I said, Marx himself, or Rabbi Chaim Mordechai, he himself was a big fan of the Hegelian dialectic. and problem, reaction, solution works every time for them. And unfortunately, people every time fall for that. But they are definitely trying to make the greater Israel, number one. Number two, if you take a look at the region and what they're doing, it's very clear. They are getting rid of the civilizations that knew what was their true identity. They came out of Iraq. They do not have any business in that region, meaning Palestine. Palestine belongs to Palestinians. You can go and take a look at the mummies. You can go and take a look at, the recent foundings and discoveries. It's very funny that the recent discoveries done by Haifa University. That's another funny part. Now, at least the professors know that Israeli government lied to them. Palestinians did exist over there for thousands of years. And where did they come from? Israelis? They really came from Iraq. And what did they do in Iraq? They destroyed Iraq. And not only that, they looted everything that was related to them. They did the same thing in Syria with ISIS. They did the same thing in Afghanistan, and they're hoping they could do the same thing in Iran. So it's not just, creating chaos in those countries, but also they want to rewrite the history. Right. They want to rewrite everything.
Right. Now, the other thing we need to mention here, because I know a lot of the Christian have been turned into Christian Zionists, meaning they think they can look the way about all this injustice and not pay attention to the persecution and murder of the Palestinians. The Israelis control their water. They control their power plants. They only turn the power plants on 12 hours a day a lot of the time. Jesus did not look the other way. Jesus took on the Pharisees. In John chapter chapter 8, verses 44, Jesus calls those who reject him among the Pharisees and the Jews the sons of the devil, who will do murder and lying down through the ages. Jesus didn't look the other way. And the Christian Zionists have no right to look the other way. They're going to be judged harshly for looking the other way, thinking they can just support, even if it was true that the biblical promises still were not fulfilled, which is false. We got it on our website, letfreedomring247.com, that has already been fulfilled in the Old Testament. The Christian Zionist prophecies that they're looking forward to have already been fulfilled. God gave them the land
1900
years before Christ. It says it 3 times in the Old Testament. Yes. So there's no prophecies to be fulfilled, okay? All this is just a Rothschild simulation of the prophecies to loot mankind, and they want to bring that a greater Israel to what the boundaries in the Old Testament were. They have no right to it. First of all, they're not the chosen people anymore because they rejected Christ. But secondly, those promises were already fulfilled. So we need to get that in, because I know a lot of Christian Zionists, the most brainwashed people in history with the internet available to them, think that, we're offending God. No, we're standing up for justice, and standing up for justice is always standing up for God. Now, Nikki, we have 2 minutes till the music, the closing times starts, believe it or not. And we'll let you take the next 2 minutes till the music starts or around then, and sum up for us here, and then we'll do the 3-minute closing, okay?
Okay, great. Thanks so much. The next thing I wanted to mention is a gal named Debbie Lassignan, who's known as the Sane Progressive. She's been covering Syria very closely. And so if you go on to, I have links at targetfreedomusa.com. In the article, you can click on her links on her YouTube and Facebook, and you'll see that our Joint Chiefs of Staff and whatnot, basically they were saying with John McCain there, what can we do, to get this no-fly zone? And the military guy, answers the question honestly, and then he's, slapped down by McCain. But he basically said, well, if you really want us to control all of the airspace in Syria, that means we're going to have to go to war with Russia and Syria. And John McCain's like, wait. No, we just need to protect these people. So, the information is out there. If you look for it, like I said, the Same Progressive, Debbie Lassignan is covering that in depthly. All the other links are there. I put the one on Christian Zionism, Jim, also in that article. Okay. And then also see the video of Rachel Corey. So just be on the lookout, guys. They're going to say something happened. Hamas is not firing firing these rockets. It's a faction inside, controlled by Israel. The Palestinians call them fake ISIS. They're opponents. They are enemies of Hamas, and there's another group that are enemies of Hamas. Those are the ones that have fired a couple of rockets into a parking lot or something. I mean, these rockets are ridiculous. They don't do anything, and never hurt anybody. So, but look for another pretext to them bombing the poor people of Palestine within a week to 4 weeks after the election. And please, make your voice heard. Let people know we know what they're up to. We know what they're doing.
And we hope to stop it by getting enough awareness. I mean, that may seem a vain hope, but that's what we hope to do is stop. Because this is just like, as they say, shooting fish in a barrel. The Palestinians hunker down in their house and hope that the bomb doesn't hit their house. That's basically what it is. And all the aid, so many of the arms Israel has, like 98% or whatever, are coming from us. So we are responsible objectively. Those who are aware of it must speak out. And all over the world there's opposition to this. There was about 200 Irish people, I think, at the Olympics that were holding up pro-Palestinian signs. Of course, that never made the media in this country. Okay, Nikki?
Yes.
Okay, there's our music. So round up here in about 30 seconds, and then we're going to have to run.
There's a lawsuit to stop the aid to Israel based on them not signing the non-proliferation agreement because they're in control of 300 to 400 nuclear weapons. So there is a lawsuit in place to try to stop the aid. It's illegal for us to aid them when they don't sign the non-proliferation agreement. Go ahead,
Nikki, and we will be back next week, and next week, for the next 4 weeks up till November 6th. We're going to cover a lot about how our election system has been stolen, how we get it back, how we can take the country back through the precinct system. This is Let Freedom Ring, 247.com, the radio show, sponsored by Dr. Q Marskiani, Dr. Q for Congress in the 1st District. And Dr. Q, why don't we have about 2 minutes or so, why don't you say some final words here?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm Dr. Q Marskiani. I'm running for Congress for 2016. Vote for me because I echo your voice. Thank you.
So this is October 9th. We'll be back for the next 4 weeks on Sunday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time until November 6th, 2016, 2 days before the Tuesday presidential election. I'm Jim Condit Jr. I'm the campaign manager. Dr. Q Marskiani, Dr. Q, is the candidate for the 1st District of Congress 2016. I'll be co-hosting with him next week again. Website is electdrq.com. All the links we've talked about in this show are at targetfreedomusa.com. That's targetfreedomusa.com in the first article. You're getting here what the many things that the major talk show hosts on TV and radio are not allowed to talk about. The truth about 9/11, the truth about the election night gatekeepers that have usurped our election system, and the major talk show hosts on TV and radio are not allowed to touch this. So join us next week, and maybe some final words now.
Have a great day.
The proceeding was a paid political program, and the station was required to air it. Hiring people is probably the worst part of my job.
Did you hear that the disclaimer, instead of saying that the station does not necessarily agree with the contents of this paid advertisement, they said they want everybody to know they're required to run this show, which is fine with us because it makes it clear that our message is more of a hot potato than anything else they ever air. And I guess they're getting complaints from certain factions that we have a few hours a year versus 365 days a year for the owners of these stations to push their propaganda, suppress news, fake terror attacks, etc., etc., etc. You can find these radio shows on electdrq.com. That's electdrq.com, and on the bottom of the documentation tab at letfreedomring247.com. Thank you very much.